I went to Pan American Games. I think it's like I competed on the 27th of October last year. So it's like I
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
recently
wow.
very recent. So I was in Chile. So I got to go to Chile with the Canadian team, and I knew that that would be my last kind of meet. So I was really just taking in like the environment and like everything. I was with several elite athletes who went on to like compete at the Olympics, and I was just such an honor to be there.
All right, welcome everyone to another great episode of Let's Move Canada. We're your hosts, Dana and Luigi, with the Canadian Health and Fitness Institute. And on today's episode of Let's Move Canada, we have with us a competitive athlete, Keira Christie-Galloway, about what inspired her to stay active and what being healthy means to her. But before we introduce her, okay, let me start by saying that this podcast is brought to you by the Canadian Health and Fitness Institute, whose mission is to make Canada the fittest nation on earth by 2030. And to this end, of course, our podcast aims to raise awareness about physical and mental health. In the moment you've all been waiting for, we're very excited to welcome Keira Christie-Galloway with us today. Keira is a phenomenal athlete, competitive athlete actually, and a record holder in Canadian track and field. Keira holds the Canadian U20 and U18 records in the 100-meter hurdle. And in June 2018, she shattered a 36-year-old national U20 record. And in 2019, while attending university, she clocked an impressive 13.10 second in the 100-meter hurdles, setting a personal best and a school record of the WIN Big 12 Conference Championship. Now, Keira's journey began at the age of 14 when she transitioned from gymnastics to track. And of course, within just 2 weeks, she was already claiming the long jump silver medal and provincial meets. And Keira has continued on and graduated with a bachelor's in sociology from Arizona State University. We're here to hear about her story. So Keira, welcome, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Yes, thank you guys for having me. It's an honor to be on the Let's Move Canada podcast. And just hearing what I've done in the past, it's just crazy to hear that. It's been a hell of a journey. So thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And this was only some of it, and we're gonna get to hear the rest of it today. So thank you for joining.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Welcome. So, first off, tell us about where you're from, where you grew up, and what your childhood was like, and whether you were really active growing up.
Yeah, so I grew up in Ottawa, Canada. I was very active as a child. I would not stop moving, so I was constantly doing something. So my family decided to put me into gymnastics because I would go into the play structures and just climb on the outside of it. And my grandma would be like, "What is going on?" So they put me into gymnastics, and from there, I think I was in gymnastics for a couple of years. I moved pretty quickly up into competitive gymnastics, and I was training 18 hours a week. And then from there, I kind of lost a little bit of my passion for it, but still wanted to be active. And my family was like, "What do you enjoy doing?" And I always loved to do vault. So vault is when you run and then you kind of jump on the implement and then you flip off of it. And I always loved the running part of vault. So they were like, "Would you consider running?" And then that's just kind of how it flourished from there. And I got into track and field, and I was like you said, I did long jump and did very well, and my family didn't really know what to think of it at the time, and they were really excited for me, and just kind of pursued and kept, training and going to my practices, and really took off from there. And then I got introduced to hurdles, and yeah, that's just kind of the beginning of it all.
Very beautiful. It sounds like it's a recurring theme with a lot of folks that we've invited on the podcast that were very active as children, and they've just had wonderful family members that thought, let's find a place to put all of that energy. So it's great to hear that your family thought of that, and you did. It sounds like you did a little bit of exploring as well, right? Because at some point, I think gymnastics was part of it, right? Can you tell us a little bit about maybe the full journey as you went from one sport to the other?
Yeah, so I definitely explored around. I think that's so important, just having the opportunity to try different things and not just right away jumping into one sport and going competitive with that, but feeling the field and trying different things. So my family was very open and as soon as I expressed not necessarily wanting to do gymnastics anymore, they were very open to letting me switch to something else and not being like, no, you need to continue doing this. Even though I
Mhm.
was at it, they, were like, let's try something else. And they were open to that, which I'm so appreciative for, because I feel like a lot of burnout can happen if you just stick to something you're not necessarily enjoying or specialize too early. So that journey from gymnastics to track, I was very supported by my family, which I'm so thankful for.
Yeah, that makes it so much better, right? I mean, I imagine there was a lot of driving around and going to meets and all of those things, then trying to balance schoolwork and your track and field, which you said 18 hours you were doing a week of gymnastics on top of everything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
So
is a ton.
That sounds a lot.
I would think I was like elementary, and I remember thinking, oh, I wish I could just go home and not like leave my house and just watch TV. But I was
Right.
motivated, and there's always pros and cons, and I'm super happy I kept with it.
Yeah. So you decided that you're going to go into competitive track and field at university level. Um, so tell us about what it was like your experience at university and some memorable moments and some challenges.
Yeah, for sure. So I was with Ottawa Lions. So it's a track club in Ottawa, and they really introduced me to the competitive nature of track, and they really fostered me up into the university level. So at first, I stayed in Canada and I went to Ottawa University and was running at Ottawa University and training. And then after that, I decided I'm going to take a scholarship and move to America. So when I was 19, I moved to Iowa. I went to Iowa State, and I was competing at the D1 level, which was such a big shock for me, going from, Canada, moving to America, and all of that has to come with it. But from there, competed at the Big 12 championships, indoor and outdoor, and I actually won my first year in the NCAA. And then I made
Wow.
it NCAA,
Wow.
yeah, which was really like such a big stage, so much talent. And I remember I was just at NCAA's. I think my first one was Austin, Texas. And I was just like, this is crazy. And I was just seeing some of the best, like Grant Holloway, um, competing. And it's just like a lot of people that are competing are going to the Olympics. And it was just a great opportunity for me and really opened my eyes to like what track and competitive athletics can do for you.
I gotta ask, how did you overcome the nervousness and like anxiety?
Yeah. So honestly, I think using it to your advantage, but not letting it could totally take control of you. You have to kind of like center yourself and put it into like, okay, all I would think is like finish line. So like when I'm on the line, I'm thinking like, let's just get through this race. And all I'm thinking about is just finish line and positive thoughts. I do
Mhm.
think doing gymnastics and being on the beam and being able to like compose yourself when you're on a beam really helps me, and just all through my life, and being an athlete, learning how to like really just control it and use it to my advantage.
Mhm.
That's a good skill to have. It'd be a hard one. That's a hard one.
Yeah, and it's helped me in like all situations in my life, like even in my career now. Um, it's helped me. So just being able to like get out of my comfort zone and be able to like talk myself down if I'm like too nervous, and just really just fake it till you make it and just do it.
Yeah, right.
And so when you were younger, you did gymnastics. You pretty much were active 18 hours a week. What was your daily routine like while being in D1? And I'm curious to know, has some of that continued today, right? Like, so what were your daily exercise routines like?
Yeah, so lots of stretching, time management, and being able to get nutritious meals. I like when I was younger, my family, very supportive, making sure I had dinner every night, and like breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snacks in between. So just stay on top of nutrition, hydration. That's a big thing. I think I feel like when you're young, you don't really think, you're like, oh, I feel fine. But it's like, no, making sure you're hydrated, especially as you get older. Training here in Arizona, I had to make sure I was hydrated, or else, you would just burn out. So hydration, protein, super important. I try to prioritize even now, having protein every day. So just those little tips and tricks, sleep, recovery, super important. That's just kind of stuff that I've learned from when I was younger, and it's carried on to now, and it's will stay with me for the rest of my life. So really important things I've learned.
So just a follow-up to that question, Ottawa, south of the US, right? All I'm thinking is the heat, right? So how did you work out? How did you manage, right? To work out in the heat, like, drinking water is so important, but it can always protect you from heat stroke. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so on top of the drinking the water, making sure you have hat, sunscreen, those are all so important, especially in the Arizona heat. It was such a big shock. Coming from Ottawa, like half the year we would train inside in a dome because it was snowing. So training all year long in heat that I've never experienced before. Hat, sunscreen, making sure you're listening to your body. That's so important. And it's like, you need to stop, or if something's not feeling right, talking to your trainer and communicating with the people around you.
That sounds tough. Yeah, that does sound like a huge adjustment. So, how many years were you doing track in university for?
Yeah, so since 2017, so what is that? Is that 6 years? 7 years. I started in Canada. NCAA, I was in for 5 years. So yeah, so 5 years in the NCAAs in America. I've been training at an elite level. I've made a couple teams in Canada, like 2 Pan American Games, a couple like World Youth, World Junior team. So I've gotten to travel to a bunch of different places and just experience competing at that high level.
Tell us about the Pan American Games. That's really exciting.
Yeah, so actually, I went to Pan American Games. I think it's like I competed on the 27th of October last year. So it's like recently very recent. So I was in Chile. So I got to go to Chile with the Canadian team, and I knew that that would be my last kind of meet. So I was really just taking in like the environment and like everything. I was with several elite athletes who went on to like compete at the Olympics, and I was just such an honor to be there, and just really taking the season that I had in the NCAA and carrying it to Pan American Games was just such a great opportunity. And I really was soaking it all in, like the team culture and being in the village with all the different countries and being with Canada. It was just such a good experience for me.
The word team comes up a lot. I'm very curious to know how important a team is to you. How does that, like, it seems like you've transitioned quite a few times. So what does a team mean to you, and how do you go about finding community again and again and again?
Yeah. It means so much to me. And especially moving away from home, your teammates are going through similar things as you. They're competing, they're doing the same workouts, and it really fosters this like sense of like family. So it really goes further than just a team, but you're really leaning on each other and supporting each other through everything. And I've had the opportunity to have so many different teammates and teams, and just moving and then transferring schools, I've always had a really good community around me. When I went to Grand Canyon University, and I graduated with my MBA, and that was last year. And my team, I would have them over for girls' nights and stuff like that.
Nice.
So it's
fun
to have a team around you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So, and you're not doing track and field meets now, is that right?
Yeah, so I retired last year. I think like this day.
Wow. And happy anniversary. So how does your exercise and nutrition schedule look now?
Yeah, so that was one thing I was a little nervous about. I was like, I still want to be active. I still want to make sure I'm living this a healthy lifestyle and I'm getting out there. So what it looks like now is I've transitioned. I still do cardio and all of that stuff. I've joined some run clubs. So I still
Oh,
like to
nice.
go and like be part of that community. And I go to run clubs on Wednesdays and I get moving and stuff like that. But another really big thing that's been helping me stay active is Pilates. So I'm in a Pilates.
I love
Oh.
Pilates. I'm a huge Pilates fan. Yes.
So obsessed. So I do reformer Pilates
Mhm.
and I go 3 times a week and I get up early. So I go for the 6 a.m. class. So I'm up by like 5.
Wow.
And
Mhm.
it just keeps me in that routine because being an athlete, you're so used to having a coach and you're having like a community around you. So Pilates has been such a game changer for me because I mean, they're going to charge me if I don't show up. But on top of that, uh, like a
Yeah,
community and I
it's
have a
true.
coaching me through these different movements. So that's been like a complete game changer because it'd be hard for me to just be like, okay, 5 a.m. I'm going to go to the gym and lift weights. So
Hmm. I
really good.
100% agree with you. I also go to Pilates 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And if I did not have that, like some sort of class and somebody guiding me and the sense of other, other people in the room and holding me accountable if I don't show up, that type of thing. It's like I feel I would never be active. I honestly don't think I would be very, at least not to this level at all. So I
Yeah.
think that that's important, and I've talked about this on the podcast before because it makes it, and I was talking to Luigi about this earlier,
Just a few minutes, right?
saying just a few minutes ago, saying like you just should try a group class. Just try it, right? Because if you have not tried a group class and you're the type of person that finds it difficult to motivate yourself to exercise, which I am that person. If it's just on me, I find it very, very difficult. But if you have somebody that's leading you through all your movements and you have, friends there and you've got like this sense of community and you've got a time dedicated to exercising and you can't procrastinate and you can
Exactly.
cancel, but like you said, you're going to get charged for it. It really, really helps. And then it also, obviously it improves your health. It improves your mental health, physical health. Your
Mhm.
energy levels will go up, right? There's like all these other benefits that we don't always think about, like energy, right? Like having more energy throughout the day. So I'm glad that you brought that up, and I'm hoping Luigi will try one.
I think it's a sign. I mean, literally before you got on here, we were talking about this, and the way we talked about it was it doesn't have to be Pilates or just Pilates because there's so many different classes out there. There's Zumba, there's just a number of things that people can do. So, the message here, everyone, is that uh, there's Pilates, there's Zumba, there's maybe another form of physical activity that you can participate in because a lot of times when you're with a group, you build that sense of community. It's a way to stay accountable and it's a way to have fun.
Sometimes the classes can get expensive, and maybe that's why some people don't go.
Hmm.
I know that there are some places in Canada, some gyms like Fitness World. I think some of the Trevor Linden ones, Club 16 do it. I'm not sure, but Fitness World, I think the monthly fee is something like $16. It's something low. I don't live there anymore, but that includes your classes, right? Like your unlimited classes. So even if you have like a regular gym membership, you could just go in and try one, or you can talk to the front desk, ask them if you could just try one out. Uh, because and like yesterday was our Halloween dance cardio day. So we all like dressed up and did dance cardio, and it was so fun, right? It's like you're working out, but you're having fun. So
I love that. And I
whatever
think
we
that,
can do to, yeah, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, I think it's so important to have fun. And that was like one thing that was really big for me is like, okay, I'm retiring from training so many hours, so hard. And um, what am I going to do next? So I really wanted to prioritize having fun and then listening to my body too and
Right.
trying things. Like if one day I just want to go for a walk, I will go for a walk or a hike. And it's like really, it doesn't have to be this crazy work.
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be like
Hmm.
we're running like 5 400s at this speed. Like it could just be, doing a light cardio walk. I like to do also treadmill workouts at incline. So stuff like that. So
Mhm.
yeah, and
Yeah, those
having
are great too.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's so funny. I had my husband, and he's an elite athlete too, so he does discus, and he went to worlds and stuff like that, and I had him do a Pilates class, and I was telling him, I'm like, yeah, I don't sweat that much, like it's more like slow. I don't really sweat. He was dripping sweat beside me dying, and I knew he wanted to just sit there and not like continue on, and I was like,
Right.
finish this
You better
class.
get up. Yeah, no,
Right.
that's funny. I should try to get my husband to go one day and see how he does, because he works out 7 days a week, and but it's always, weightlifting and everything. And I'm like, could he do this?
Yeah.
There's so many different muscle groups in the body, and a lot of times, it seems to me that every sport targets so many different groups, but not every single group, right? So at some point, a football player tries ballet, or a ballerina tries to do something that a football player would do often. You will see that both of them are struggling because they're working with new muscle groups, right? So
Yeah, for sure. I
Oh,
mean, it's
like
all great, right? Like better to move doing anything than to be sedentary, of course. And that's what our whole mission is about. Our whole podcast is about just trying to inspire and motivate people that are, less active or need to be more, want to be more active in their lives. And how do you motivate and how do you inspire them to get out there and do that? But, if it can be fun, right? We can make it fun, and you can feel better, and you have higher energy levels, and all of that. So when we
yeah.
have people like you on, Keira, who's like, inspirational, like, look what you've done, look what you've accomplished. It's, and then you're what you're doing now, right? And say, oh, what, if she's going to 3 Pilates classes a week, I'm going to try to do that.
Yeah. And it's so good. And I would say the biggest thing is to just start. Because I remember I was in my head, like I've done competitive like athletics my whole life. And when I was signing up for my first Pilates class, I was like a little nervous. I was like, oh, like I don't even know what to like if I'm gonna be able to do it. And I just honestly was like, just go. So I just showed up, and then now I'm like 30 classes in, and I love it. So
wow. No, that's wonderful, and it's just clicking to me that you mentioned pursuing an MBA. Did you already graduate?
yeah, so I graduated with my MBA,
That's
and I'm working in sales now. So still,
beautiful.
but yeah, different.
And so that means at the time, if you retired last year, that means at some point being a competitive athlete and going to school for your MBA overlapped. How did you balance that? I mean, my partner went to grad school for an MBA, and it's crazy. It's a lot of work. How did you manage that?
Yeah, so I remember I graduated at ASU with sociology, and then I got the opportunity to get my MBA at a school in Arizona,
Right.
Grand Canyon, and I was like, how am I going to balance both of this? Like I was like, I don't know. So I just did it. I just jumped into it, and I remember I was taking classes at night. So it was a lot of like organization, making sure that I keep my energy levels up and that I'm at practice, but that I'm also at my class at night. A lot of support from my team around me. I had some other of my teammates who were also doing their MBA at the same time as me. So
Wow.
really leaning on them and staying organized and making sure I'm communicating and keeping up with my sleep. And then having prioritized time for like, okay, I'm going to study now. And then I have to go do my workout at this
Mhm.
time, making sure I'm just staying organized on top of things. That's just how I got through it. And I loved it. I mean, it was a lot of work, but it really paid off for me. So
I just love how on your journey you've met quite a few people who are doing the same thing that you are, or you guys just have a lot of shared experiences to have other folks that are athletes and they're getting their MBAs, right? Like, or just being in school, right? It's nice to have a community that connects with you on so many levels. So that's just wonderful.
yeah, and it's motivating. So that's like a motivation in itself. You're seeing other people who are on this similar journey to you, and you're surrounding yourself around people who are, working hard and doing the things that they want to achieve, and it's really motivating.
No, that's
So, what is your advice to young Canadians who want to be healthier, stronger, maybe competitive athletes? What do you think?
I would say my biggest advice is no matter how nervous you are, and this is something that I leaned on a lot, especially going into like big meets. If I was like, oh, I'm like nervous today, I don't want to get out of bed. It's like, just show up and just do it. Like, it's like the still fake it till you make it. It's like, if you're nervous or you're scared to start something, just starting with like little small movements. It doesn't need to be this big leap, but maybe just itching a little bit towards the goal you want to accomplish. And soon you'll be looking back and you'll be like, look at how much how far I've come, how much I've accomplished. It's really just in those little decisions and moments of just showing up for yourself. That's what I've leaned on all through my career.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And it's a transferable lesson too, right? Because sometimes even with errands that you have to run, even sometimes with your hobbies or with going to work even, right? Sometimes you just have to get up, just get out of bed and make your way. And somewhere, somehow, the motivation could come back, the interest could come back. You're reminded of why you're doing. So love that message.
Yeah, and I remember there was this one time I was in the shower and I was like, it was regionals for like NCAA and I had a pretty big competition that day. And I was just like, oh, like, why do I put myself under this stress? And I was kind of like thinking about it. And I was like, no, just like do it. And then next thing you know, you'll be back home and you did it and you'll feel so much better. So it's just really in those moments where you're not necessarily wanting to do something, you still show up for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Now we've talked about a lot of amazing things that you've done in the past, from work, from being a competitive athlete to going to school, now to working and to attending your classes. Very curious to know what your future goals are.
Yeah, that is still unfolding, figuring it out daily. I would say right now, my future goals is to just be doing what I love, living a healthy lifestyle, getting into that routine, and maintaining that routine all through my life. Right now, I'm like kind of more into like the corporate side of things. I'm not competing anymore, but I'm in sales, so doing like learning all about that and just balancing. It's similar to athletics. And when I was interviewing for my job, I was like, yeah, like the competitive nature of things, it's pretty similar with sales. So just doing what I love and being active, that's the biggest thing for me.
So you mentioned what your fitness schedule looks like since you stopped competing. What about your diet and nutrition? What does that look like?
Yeah, so a lot of home cooked meals. I've had to learn how to, cook at home and cook for myself. So just making sure I am getting breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then I would say the biggest thing for me is like making sure I'm getting my protein intake and
Mm-hmm.
getting protein, eating protein. That's been so important to me. And then what else am I also doing? I'm really big, like, so my breakfast, I'll tell you guys what I eat for breakfast like every
Yes,
day.
yes.
I have Greek yogurt with some granola, and then I love apples and peanut butter. So it's like my go-to breakfast. I make sure I always have that in the house. And lots of water. I don't really drink anything. It's just coffee, which I drink black, and then water. So that's like the biggest thing is making sure you also have easy meals to prep. So you're not like, oh, let's just go eat out. And just top of like learning just like little tips and tricks to make it easier when you're in the kitchen.
I think what you said is really important. So I've been thinking about doing like putting some easy recipes on because I went on it, I find a lot of recipes on Instagram. I scroll through there all the time and I'm like, oh, that looks amazing. I'm looking at one recipe yesterday. I swear to God, it was like 40 ingredients and it was so long. And I was like, I'm never going to make that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, that's not happening. But if there was, and I think that a lot of people feel that way about cooking at home, right? It's complicated or it's just, I don't have all the ingredients or it's going to take too long or I can't, they don't have confidence in the cooking and then they go out and they eat something out, right? So Luigi, what do you think? What do you do there? What's your
Absolutely correct. I realized that in the last maybe 2 months, I've not really cooked a big meal, because what I used to do is every weekend I would cook a big pot, just enough for maybe the next 4 days. Somewhere over the summer, I think I got sick over the summer just for a few days. It was like a weird cold just in the middle of summer, so weird. And not only did I fall off with working out, I fell off with cooking as well. I was able to get back a little bit into working out, but cooking was such a drag. Like I couldn't explain it. And I kind of just got into this habit of just eating out. And to your point, Dana, cooking things like just small and quick and easy things is what is getting me back there. But it's been a struggle. I don't know what it is. And Thanksgiving just passed. For the first time, I didn't cook a whole lot. It's really weird. That's not like me. But hey, Christmas is around the corner. So what about you this year?
Yeah.
No, that's so big. Like I do the TikTok scroll too, like TikTok, Instagram, and it's like
Mhm.
I'm gonna make that, but then it's a bunch of ingredients you have to buy, and then it's not really some of it's not applicable. Sorry, I can't speak to like other meals. So it's like sometimes
Mhm.
getting like the basics, like your carb, your protein, a veggie. Like that's what I do. Like
Yeah.
my go, okay, I'll buy broccoli. And then I have rice and potatoes in my house at all times. Like these are just staple things I have in my house with like a protein. So it's like you can easily just whip together a balanced meal, and then you don't have like all these like it gets expensive when you're buying all these different sauces and you're trying to make all these.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's doing the basics sometimes just
I
is
have
just
like hot sauce as my condiment. It's like because it goes with everything. I swear it goes with eggs. Like for breakfast, I'll have like eggs and hot sauce and then soup with hot sauce in it. Like because it has flavor and stuff, right? And there's different kinds,
Right.
obviously, but sriracha's great.
yeah.
And you just because I've done the thing where it's like I'm gonna make Thai soup tonight and I'm gonna make Indian food tomorrow and this and then you end up with a million things in your pantry and no meals. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, this is not sustainable. Okay. So, and then I've been following these accounts online where they'll do a grocery shop. They'll be like, I'm gonna spend $90 on groceries this week, and here's the meals I made, and and it's just easy, 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 5 ingredients every meal. It's like that's what, that makes it more sense because trying to communicate or get people more motivated and inspired to make healthy food is not easy. And we it's really half the equation, right? It's a huge part of the equation of why we're not as healthy as we should be is what
Mhm.
we're eating. So it's a big part of it. So I like what you're saying. What's something that you normally eat for dinner? Just
Yeah, so my go-to, so there's a couple, like we rotate through a couple meals. We do like a taco bowl with chicken, so it's just like rice. We do beans, corn with chicken, and I use like cumin as my seasoning, with like salt and all of that stuff. And it's really easy. It's just like I have a trick, like so something instead of sour cream, I use Greek yogurt. So it's like instead
mm-hmm.
yogurt on top, like just little tips and tricks like that. Another thing is like I said, I always have broccoli in my house. So it's like I'll do broccoli like on a pan, put it in the oven with some olive oil, some salt, pepper, with like some chicken. And then I really like sweet potato. So it's like all of those, like I just kind of rotate through it. And it's like I'm not always trying to like make like a crazy complicated meal, which I
Right.
don't want to for like if you do your grocery list and then you're like, oh, I really don't want to make that tonight. So it's like sometimes just sticking to the basics and then not buying
Mm-hmm.
all these different sauces that you won't use again. Yeah. Trying to like
Right.
different dishes. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Dana, I know we have one more question, but one thing that I was curious to know is about Kira's hobbies. Is there anything what's fun to you lately? I mean, I know there's Pilates.
Mhm.
Sounds like cooking is, but these kind of sound like the basic things, right? What do you do for fun? Like, what are your hobbies nowadays?
Yeah, so I have quite a few. I love baking, so I like cooking, baking, but now that it's cooling down in Phoenix, hiking. So I know we're going into like our winter season, which is like when we can actually like do activities. So I like to go on hikes. I also enjoy reading, and learning just different things. So those are like my go-to hobbies. I don't know if coffee is like a hobby. Like I like drinking coffee, going to coffee shops.
Nice.
Coffee.
I love coffee. Yeah.
So just
So
stuff like,
you can get pretty intense into coffee.
Yeah,
You see those people with like the little
absolutely.
brush and the
Yes.
yeah,
So many different kinds nowadays.
yeah,
So many variations, right? So being a coffee
yeah.
connoisseur is the thing, I think.
yeah. And then I also want to get more into like social media stuff, like content creation. So
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's great. So, our last question for you, since we've kept you so long, is what is one thing that Canada should be focusing on when it comes to health and is not doing a great job at?
I would say the one thing, like going to school in Canada, all through like elementary to high school, I think a big thing Canada could focus on is more classes around health and healthy lifestyle and
Hmm.
incorporate into like, the curriculum in school. And then also when it comes to sports, having more coaches, like I felt like for me, I was fortunate enough, like when I was in high school, I had a coach for track, but I know some schools, they don't have like designated track coaches. It's more like a team
Oh,
volunteers or something like
Mhm.
that. So just having like more support around, living a healthy lifestyle or getting into competitive sports if that's what you want to do.
I'm curious to know when you say more health classes, or healthy lifestyle classes, what do you mean by that? Could you give maybe an example or two?
Yeah, so I would say just something as simple as like cooking for yourself, like an easy meal.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The lines of that, like how much water do you really need to drink? Like how important are these things? So it's like not something you're discovering when you get older. It's
Mm.
more something you see while you're growing up and you're young and you understand like the consequences or the benefits you can reap from doing those things. So I think I
That
had like
makes sense.
for me, like I had like one health class. I don't think like growing up I really had like a nutrition course. So along
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah, I know. I agree. The nutrition thing is important. And we were talking to a Ted Timurtzkalo, right, that works in education for public schools across Canada,
Mhm.
and he was saying that like in certain countries, like I think it was Denmark, maybe, or Sweden, they have actual athletes teach phys ed.
yeah.
So
Really
something
cool.
like that would be really cool, and it's also inspiring for kids, right?
Right. Has the lived experience and everything.
And you can relate. So that's like, yeah, that's the biggest thing. Cause it's like when it came around to track season, it was just like 2 months or like a month out. They're like, okay, we're gonna track season starting. And then it was like a volunteer coach who didn't necessarily know
Oh,
about events or something
Mm-hmm.
like getting like athletes who would love to do that and volunteer their time and motivate kids.
Or
Yeah.
just bringing in people like you, right, to speak and to motivate and inspire kids. Actually, I think it was Sherelle that brought that up. Was it? I think that said, if schools could really bring in some more inspiration, some role models, then that
yes.
would do a lot for kids, because kids, they love that, right? I mean, I remember when I was a kid, every time they brought in someone, someone to do something, some presentation or something you could look up to, some idol. It was so exciting. So,
Yeah.
You feel you can do it now, right?
And
mhm,
I think, yeah, just starting, like if Canada started younger, like reaching out to, younger audience,
Mm.
getting them
mhm,
moving, aware. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I like that, and it's actually one of the goals of CHFI, right? With our podcast and the work that we do is making sure that younger audiences are a part of that movement, because they are the future, right? We're all the future,
Mhm.
but them even more so, right? And so nurturing them in those ways makes sense. So yeah,
Yeah. So important.
very important. But hey, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, everyone. If you did not hear it anywhere else, you heard it here. Keira said it. Focusing on our youth is very important. So thank you, Keira, so much for coming on, for sharing your experience as well as your wisdom. We're very grateful.
Yes. Thank you for having me and reaching out and, seeing me be fit to be on this podcast. I've never been on a podcast before, so this is a great.
Oh, yay.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we also want to thank everyone for tuning in for this episode. We are your hosts, Dana and Luigi. And if you want to learn more about Keira, please follow her Instagram. And that is at KIWIGWA.
Yep.
Again, that is Kiwigway, Kiwigway. So make sure to go on Instagram, and you can also look us up on Instagram at Let's Move Canada for latest updates, and head over to our website at chfi.fit to learn more about our mission. And don't hesitate to DM us if you have any questions, or if you're interested to learn more about our guest, or if you want to suggest a guest on the next episodes of Let's Move Canada. Stay tuned for next episode announcements, and until next time, thank you so much.
Thank you.